Right now, 150,000 people are living on a ticking time bomb.
Wait, what? Where?
Here in Washington State, they're building homes, they're raising families, they're going to work, all on top of ancient mudflows from a volcano that could wake up any day now.
Oh, you're talking about Mount Rainier, aren't you?
The sleeping giant that makes Mount St. Helens look like a firecracker. And there's about a 1 in 7 chance that this volcano, it could cause chaos in your lifetime.
1 in 7? That's basically a chance of rolling doubles in a board game.
Today, we're going to visit both mountains to discover why Rainier, not St. Helens, is the greatest volcanic threat in the entire Pacific Northwest. Let me show you what happens when a volcano catches everyone off guard.
Our journey begins in this totally peaceful place for a hike and picnic.
But not on the chaotic morning of May 18th, 1980.
Here we are at Mount St. Helens. And you might have heard of this if you were born before 1980, May 18th. So, it was basically, on that date, there was a humongous eruption here. You see that little, valley part up there? That entire part of the volcano just went, and then just ash and boiling hot mud just came out. It was amazing. What me and the cameraman are currently standing on is the first, chunk of rock that came from Mount St. Helens. It broke off and slid all the way down here 7 miles away at 180 miles an hour. Probably faster than, most things you own can go.
The eruption released more explosive energy than all the bombs dropped in World War II, including Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
57 people died. Hikers, scientists, photographers, and residents living nearby, even though scientists knew it was coming.
No one expected it to be so sudden, or so sideways, or so powerful.
Okay, that's terrifying, but at least it's over, right?
No, actually, that was just the warm-up act to what could happen someday soon. You see, Mount St. Helens once looked a lot like Rainier. Both are stratovolcanoes. They're that classic cone shape you think of when you hear the word volcano.
Of the 4 main volcano types, stratovolcanoes are the kind that will destroy your neighborhood.
Yeah, very bad. Very, very bad. So having a volcano like Mount St. Helens in your backyard is a bit anxiety-provoking.
Yeah, except Washington doesn't just have 1, it has 5, all part of the Ring of Fire.
Yeah, the very aptly named Ring of Fire, because Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier are part of the Cascadia Arc, a chain of volcanoes fed by the Cascadia subduction zone. And this is where tectonic plates are colliding that generates earthquakes and tsunamis, and yes, volcanoes.
We made a whole video on the earthquake tsunami part of the nightmare, which you should totally check out another time. But today, it's Rainier.
Because out of the roughly 20 major volcanoes and 3,000 to 4,000 thermal features that you find in the Cascadia Arc, none will be as likely to inflict as much unimaginable lethal chaos as Rainier. However, the danger here may surprise you.
So you're telling me there's something worse than a sideways volcanic explosion?
Oh yeah, so much worse. And it's just 50 miles away.
But look, it's pretty, but
You're recording.
we're not hiking it. Ever.
Oh yeah, we definitely hiked it. Towering at over 14,400 feet, honestly, it is stunning. It looks like the Swiss Alps just dropped into the Pacific Northwest.
Why do you make me do these things in very dangerous places?
To share the wonder with everyone. Also, you definitely climbed up the mountain way faster than I did.
Trail. She is steep, but it is totally worth the effort to get here and see this. All right, as usual, I gotta go catch up with Kai. Whew.
Well, you're not slow, you just need to get fast.
I'm not slow, but I need to get fast.
Okay, so you are slow.
Okay, thank you. But I did eventually catch him on one of Rainier's 25 major glaciers, and these are the real risk at this volcano.
Even a small eruption could melt enough ice to unleash something terrifying. Lahars. Lahars.
Lahars.
Lahars.
Tomato, tomato.
Yeah.
A lahar is a volcanic mudslide. It flows like wet concrete, fast, thick, violent.
And here's the kicker. Rainier doesn't even need to erupt to trigger one.
Sometimes huge chunks of waterlogged rock just slide off the mountain flanks, especially when the ground's been weakened by underground heat that's slowly cooking the mountain from the inside. That can trigger a lahar without a single puff of ash.
Wait up. Hold up. This thing can attack even when it's sleeping?
Yes, that's exactly what makes it so dangerous.
And people live here. A lot of people.
The USGS estimates that more than 150,000 people live in areas once buried by lahars from Mount Rainier.
So how do we know this could happen?
Because it already has. Neighborhoods around Mount Rainier are built on lahar deposits.
There's entire forests buried by mud under people's yards.
Yeah, huge stumps and logs discovered while digging. Geologists trace those deposits back to Mount Rainier slopes.
That's awesome. And kind of terrifying.
Yeah, it gets worse. Scientists use data from all those buried forests and the unique chemical signatures of Mount Rainier's rocks to piece together the timeline of all these past disasters.
So, they basically read the mud like a history book.
Yeah, and it's an important book. By mapping out all of these past flows, scientists can show us exactly which valleys would flood if similar sized lahars happen today. So we know exactly where the danger is.
Which means if Rainier blows, or even just slumps, those ancient paths could turn into rivers of mud.
So what happened before can happen again.
But this time, we are prepared.
Yeah, the eruption of Mount St. Helens just changed everything, and not just the physical landscape of this place, but how we monitor and respond to volcanoes.
Scientists now have tools they only dreamed of back in 1980. High-tech systems tracking tiny shifts deep underground that warn a monster may be awakening.
Like Rainier's lahar warning system.
It works with sensors, lots of them.
The system has two parts, actually: detection and warning. The first part, detection, that's where those sensors come in. They're tiny instruments called acoustic flow monitors, or AFMs for short. They're buried in the ground, and they listen for the specific rumble of a lahar.
When a lahar starts, those AFMs detect the vibration and send data to computers at emergency centers.
And then the warning component kicks in. Those 24-hour emergency centers then trigger sirens and emergency broadcasts, even alerts on phones and radios and TV.
So, when those sirens go off, we have to move.
Fast. Move fast. Move fast, stay fast, stay fast. I don't run very fast. I actually probably should get in the car for this.
Yeah.
I think I will drive the car when we're trying to escape the lahar.
Yeah, so we're not just watching Rainier, we're listening to it, measuring it, and getting better at predicting what comes next.
But sensors, they only help if people know what to do, right? So that's why education and evacuation planning are just as important. School drills, monthly siren tests, all of that help make the response automatic and fast.
So are we basically playing volcanic roulette?
Well, not anymore. Well, we're not just watching Rainier, we are listening to its heartbeat from the inside.
Volcanoes are unpredictable. And that doesn't mean we have to be prepared.
Yes, Rainier, unlike Kai, is quiet right now. But it won't stay that way forever. And thanks to what we learned from Mount St. Helens, we are not starting from scratch either. Because we know when it comes to volcanoes, the question isn't if, it's when. And speaking of danger, there's another sleeping giant that makes Rainier look totally tame. A supervolcano that changed our planet, and you can learn more about it right here.